the Democrats said all along, hey, look, we shouldn't take away the filibuster from the Republicans when they had the majority because it's a tradition of the Senate. And at the time, the Republicans were like, yes, oh, the filibuster and the traditions of the Senate, we treasure it so. Now, after letting the Republicans do record-breaking obstruction for 6 years while the Democrats were in the majority, right as they were leaving, Harry Reid said, oh yeah, we're going to be in the minority soon, so why don't I take away the filibuster for lower court nominees? Not for the Supreme Court. That is way too radical. I'm not going to do that. So which will allow the Republicans to block Supreme Court nominees for Obama. And I said at the time, don't do that. You should have taken away the filibuster from day one because that's what the Republicans would do. And of course, as usual, the establishment said, oh, you ruffian, you Visigoth, how dare you besmirch the reputation of the Republicans? They would never do such a thing. No, we should be polite to them. No, instead, they took away a lower level filibuster at exactly the wrong time. Then they lost the majority and they were in the minority and they couldn't use it. They're the worst. And all of Obama's nominees were blocked for years and years anyway. So now, the Republicans are in charge. Do you think they're going to keep the filibuster for Supreme Court nominees because that's really important in Senate tradition? Everybody knows the answer except the idiots in Washington who are part of the Democratic Party and part of the media. Well, the Republicans are honest actors. You never know. They might keep the filibuster. No, I know. I knew from day one. And I was right and you guys were all wrong. Yeah, the minute they got an opportunity, there's a Supreme Court nominee, Gorsuch. Democrats said we're going to filibuster. The Republicans said, boom, press the button, nuke it. Nuclear option, no more filibuster. It's gone. It's gone. After 200 some odd years, the filibuster is wiped off the record. Now the majority can get anything they want. They did it the first opportunity they had, just like we told you they would. Where's the three-dimensional chess of the Democrats that I often hear about? All I see is people getting pounded. All right, now let me give you details. The Huffington Post explains that once they did the nuclear option, that resulted in permanently changing the Senate rules, so it only takes 51 votes to advance the Supreme Court nominee. Majority parties will no longer have to concern themselves at all with the opinions of the minority party or their voters for any presidential appointments. Look, the reason why the mainstream media is very slow on this issue, and I'm being incredibly polite, is because a lot of their editors grew up in the 1970s when money had not completely taken over politics, and they would actually do deals, and they would have some comedy in the Senate, right? And they actually respected one another. It wasn't anywhere near perfect, but it was real to some degree. Now, all that anybody cares about is money. If the donors tell me that we're putting Gorsuch in because he's the most pro-corporate justice we'll ever have in US history, he would let a man die freezing to death on the road if the corporations told him to. That was a literal case where Gorsuch was like, well, you should have listened to them. Of course you got fired. Well, guy's like, my only other option was to freeze to death. He's like, well, then I don't care. Listen to the corporation. You didn't? So what? You're fired. Every other justice at every level that looked at that case and said, now, of course the guy should have gone to get help and not freeze to death. Gorsuch was like, no. The Republicans are like, well, my donors love this kind of brutal right-wing maniac. I don't care about Senate traditions. That's old days. Agreeing with the Democrats, I'm never going to ask the Democrats. Nuclear option, boom, they did it immediately. So now they don't have to worry about the minority at all. More details. Huffington Post explains it normally takes the 2/3 vote or 67 votes to jettison Senate rules in the middle of a session, and that's what they had to do in order to end the filibuster. The fact that McConnell used a nuclear option to do it is a rare step that generates extreme ill will in a historically deliberative body. But guys, it's not deliberative anymore. They're all just errand boys. They take their orders from the donors and they do it. The deliberative body was dead a long, long time ago, and who cares about ill will? The Republicans are never going to ask the Democrats for their opinion. They're never going to work with the Democrats. There's not going to be any moderate solutions. They're paid to do extreme right-wing positions like deregulate and lower taxes for the benefit of their donors. Wake up already. It drives me crazy when the mainstream media on TV or in print talks about like, oh, what do the Republicans think? They don't think a damn thing. They think, where's my check? I will now do the bidding of the guy who signed my check. It's that simple. It's the fact, they think they're sophisticated people following politics. You're not sophisticated at all. Why am I constantly right? I know that it drives you crazy when I say that, right? It's not because I'm bragging. It's not because, oh, I'm better or I'm smarter. No, because I'm right about the central thesis. It's not that complicated. It's not that I'm smart. It's that you're really dense. It's the money, Lebowski. 95% of the time, The guy with more money wins the election. The corruption is out of control. And you're like, gee, I wonder what the honorable gentleman from Maryland thinks. He doesn't think a damn thing except who signs my checks. Wolf-pac.com to change that, by the way. Get an amendment. Get money out of politics. Now, back to today, after changing the rules, McConnell held the vote again on advancing Gorsuch's nomination. It passed 55 to 45 under the new rules. All that's left now is Gorsuch's confirmation vote, which is set for Friday. So the 45-55 vote is to continue the debate, and they will have continued debate and have the final vote on Friday, and Gorsuch will be your new Supreme Court justice. And the corporations, multinational corporations, big business, Chamber of Commerce will celebrate to no end, and they will have gotten exactly what they paid for. By the way, they also spent $10 million in dark money to help Gorsuch get elected. When they asked Gorsuch, hey, you got $10 million being spent on your behalf by giant corporations. You want to tell us who it is? He's like, oh golly, gee, are they? I don't know anything about that. That seems like a political issue. I can't comment on that. This guy is going to be an absolute nightmare. And the Republicans are going to go put him in. After a year of blocking Merrick Garland, they're going to put in Gorsuch just like that. The hypocrisy is grotesque, it's sickening. Now, if you're wondering why in the world did the Democrats take away the filibuster for the lower nominees in the first place? It's a thing that Schumer's right about, actually. Schumer's the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. Schumer noted that of all 147 cloture motions filed on judicial nominations in the history of the nation, that's basically a filibuster, 79 of them, more than half, were prompted by GOP blockades of Obama nominees in just the first 6 years of his presidency. So all the filibusters in the history of the Senate, more than half were just in the 6 years while the Republicans were blocking Obama. And what did the press do at the time? I don't know who's guilty of the obstruction. Both sides do it, it's bipartisan. Obama should have a beer summit. Obama should play golf with the Republicans, maybe they'll change. And he did all that. It didn't change their minds because there is no mind to change. The Republicans were always going to block him because if they block justices or judges that will actually enforce the rules and the laws to protect consumers, well, big business doesn't get to make as much profit. So they will block those guys at all costs, and when they have a guy who's on their side, they will fast track him in. That's what's gonna happen. I told you that's what would happen, and that's exactly what happened. They should have, if the Democrats were gonna kill the filibuster, they should have done it on day one and at least gotten Obama's nominees through. They did exactly the wrong strategy, and they claim that they're sophisticated. They're not at all sophisticated. They're generally paid to lose. Now let's go to the liars that are the Republicans. Huffington Post explains even Senator John McCain, who has helped to cut bipartisan deals in the past to preserve the filibuster, voted for the nuclear option. He warned just a day earlier that doing so would, quote, perhaps do irreparable damage. And a day later, he voted to do irreparable damage. Isn't that amazing? John McCain, for all those years, while he was in the minority, pretending he cared about the Senate and its traditions, it was all a big lie. He never cared. John McCain, at the end of the day, did the same thing every other Republican did. He bowed his head to his donors and said, yes, sir, may I have another? This thing that he called, just the other day, he called it, only stupid people would vote for it. And what did he do? He voted for it. Because all they are is errand boys, and that's what John McCain is. He gets his checks and he does as he's told by his bosses. Now, let me read you these grotesque hypocrisy of the Republicans. Back when the Democrats were thinking of doing the nuclear option, at least at a lower level, this is what the Republicans said at the time. First, before we get to that, Think Progress has a good note here to give you a macro sense of this. Think Progress, a review of the members' comments from 2013 when that was going down, found that at least 34 of the 37 current Republican senators who were serving at the time denounced the nuclear option as forbidden and a dangerous power grab. Now, every one of those guys turned right around and did that nuclear option. Now, let me tell you what they said about it at the time. John Barrasso, by the way, there's dozens of these comments. I'm only giving you a small sample. John Barrasso said it would irreparably damage the Senate. He voted to irreparably damage the Senate today. Richard Burr said will do lasting damage to bipartisanship, the Senate, and the nation. Richard Burr today voted to do lasting damage to bipartisanship, the Senate, and the nation. John Cornyn said it is a raw exercise of partisan political power, and that is exactly what he voted for today. Ted Cruz said today's unfortunate vote damaged the Senate today. That was back in 2013. Today, Ted Cruz, on that same exact issue, but on a larger scale, voted to purposely do damage to the Senate and to the nation. And they did it on purpose, they did it knowingly. The Republicans said over and over again how damaging and disastrous this would be. But now that they're in the majority, they did it without blinking, without hesitating, and every single one of them signed on to it. And let's finally go back to our old friend John McCain, who pretended to be so principled all this time. Back when he was in the minority, he said doing the nuclear option would be, quote, a dark day for the Senate. And errand boy John McCain today voted for a dark day in the Senate. He also at the same time had said, it is the biggest rules change, certainly since I have been in the Senate, maybe my lifetime, and maybe in the history of the Senate. He voted to do a larger, more draconian one today when they ended the filibuster for Supreme Court nominees. And just a couple of days ago, he said anyone who votes to kill the filibuster through a nuclear option would be, quote, stupid idiots. A couple of days later, his donors talk to him, the rest of the Republican establishment talks to him. All of a sudden, John McCain bows his head like a good little errand boy, offers up his hand and says, yes, I will vote like a stupid idiot. Well, for once, John McCain and the Republicans, we agree. That's exactly how you voted today. Young Turks now has over 6 billion lifetime views. You know who did that? You did that. We're now larger than CNN, ABC, you name a news network online, we're larger than them. And you built all that as everyone scoffed and didn't believe. And here we are, guys, thanks to you. Build independent media together with us at tytnetwork.com/join.